Okay, so Dana and I did our presentation on the limitations of women in the Haredi society. Next slide. So this is just kind of a breakdown um, of the percentages of different Jewish denominations in the United States. And so you can kind of see that there's these main identities of no denomination, Orthodox, conservative, Reformed, and other. And as you can see, the majority of the Jewish population in the U.S. is Reformed, followed by, is Reformed, followed by no denomination. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just kind of a background of Haredi society. So basically, in general, there are main couple of characteristics. So they're referred to as the ultra-Orthodox Jews, and theologically, they are the most conservative. And in addition, they do believe that God wrote the Torah, and so they strictly observe Jewish law. And they also see themselves as heritage carriers, meaning that they feel that part of their life duty is to kind of carry on the word of the Torah, the Holy Scriptures, and like the ultra-Orthodox traditions in general. And also, essentially, it is to their understanding that if no one carries on these traditions, that the Jewish religion will fade. And so they really take it upon themselves to carry these traditions. And this is one of the reasons why they are actually exempt from army service, because after the Holocaust, once Israel became a state, an official state, and there was like kind of that war of independence going on, the Haredi made it one of their demands, one of their requests, that because they had lost so many of their people in the Holocaust, that it was unfair for them to participate in the war and in the army, because then they were going to lose people to pass on these traditions, and so then they kind of became exempt from army service. Okay, so this is just like a little breakdown of Haredim versus Hasidim, and so essentially all Hasidic are Haredim, but not all Haredim are Hasidic. So Hasidim is like a group, is one of the two main groups within the Haredim overarching category, and Hasidim is, although like Haredim also, they segregate themselves, this is kind of more intensely, and so they do that by rejecting the modern society that they live in, and by rejecting this, they also reject any modern effort to conform. Also, in the Hasidic culture and society, it is very popular, or it's consistent among all the Hasidim communities that they have a figurehead called a Rebbe, and the Rebbe serves as a leader and guide for the community, and he essentially also leads like a lot of daily decisions that go on, and they're kind of the guide and the leader for that community. He's very authoritative, and normally like they're the person that women and men both go to if they're having difficulties. And then also for Hasidim, they tend to follow God through love and piety, and they use the Torah with spirituality and mysticism. And Hasidim, they still study the Torah, just not as intensely as another group of the Haredim. So they don't necessarily follow God via books, but they still do study the Torah, especially the men of the Haredim. That is their main occupation. So next slide. So education. So this is kind of where we turn more into women's education. And in the beginning, girls were primarily excluded from education. You can see girls' education used to be neglected among Jewish religious communities in Europe. And if anything, they kind of learned from their mothers and they also at some points went to secular schools, but they never really studied the Torah. And but in Haredi society, like there is like the schools there are extremely religious, and but they are not allowed to go to college. They go to yeshiva primarily rather than going to university, and the women do not go to college. So yes, this is just kind of a little breakdown of that. Next slide. So political representation. This is kind of just the overarching theme behind political representation in these different categories. So the main ones there are three main sections, and these are the religious Zionists, so right over here, the ultra-Orthodox non-Zionists, and the ultra-Orthodox anti-Zionists. And the religious Zionists believe that the state should become religious once the Messianistic era comes, and then or arrives. And the ultra-Orthodox non-Zionists believe that there should still be political involvement because that's going to be the only way they'll stay protected. But then the ultra-Orthodox anti-Zionists believe that there should actually be zero political involvement, and that even if there is political involvement, it has to be religious. If it's non-religious, then it shouldn't have any political influence. So next one. Next slide. Okay. So this kind of goes back to what I said a little bit earlier. So after the Holocaust, once Israel became an official state, the Haredi politics demanded 4 concessions. And these demands were that they require a legal day of rest, kosher kitchens, religious law must be accounted for through marriage and personal matters, and a requirement is that they want state-funded ultra-Orthodox schools present so that there's religious schools. And as well, like I had stated earlier with army and warfare, how the Haredi are exempt, essentially. And because the Haredi folk wanted to be exempt from fighting, because if they died, no one would pass on their studies of the Holy Scriptures and the Torah, and that essentially their ultra-Orthodox lifestyle would kind of become depleted had they died in the war. And also, so the Haredi are essentially characterized as non-contributing citizens of Israel because they do not participate in war, or they don't enlist in the army, and as well, many are unemployed, and so they actually have a very low economic standing and are extremely dependent on the state of Israel. And so they tend to receive sums of money from others and the state, which are helping them stay afloat. And this is kind of why they have become involved in the Knesset. And so this is also why they do support Israel has a coalition government, but they do support this. That way they're not necessarily overruled by their opinions. And it's okay. I'll just stop this video.